Okay, looks like we're live. Welcome, everyone. This is the Yagni podcast with Matt Harrison and Noah Gift, where we talk about our experiences doing consulting, training, and optimizing developers and people who are working with data. And so excited to be here. Today, we're going to talk about tools, but before we do that, just maybe do a brief recap or update for what's been going on. You have anything you want to share with the audience, Noah?
The big stuff I've been working on recently has been, working on machine learning engineering, and a lot of the courses I'm teaching the next year at Duke and Northwestern are focused on that concept. And I think that's probably the most exciting thing that I'm working on is using things like AutoML on Azure or AutoML on Google Cloud or AutoML on the
That's awesome.
Amazon Cloud.
Cool. So you're seeing a lot of demand for that?
Yeah, I think that I think what's happening even at the university system, which is typically a little bit slower, is that they're realizing that these model creation processes are really a bottleneck, and that they need to figure out a way to speed it up. And that's really what I'm noticing at the university level, the corporate level, and also at the educational level, is that this is now on the horizon.
That's awesome. What sort of the background required for someone? Do they need to be a full-on engineer to be able to leverage these tools?
Yeah, I think that what's fascinating about the machine learning engineering landscape is where it looks like it's headed is that the capabilities that someone had as a Jupyter Notebook practitioner, that same style works pretty well with AutoML, where there'll be a line of code that says use AutoML on Azure, for example, and then behind the scenes it'll spin up 20, 30, 40 models over like a half an hour, and then you go back to Azure Machine Learning Studio, and then they'll show you all the experiments. And so it's really actually, I think, fits very well with somebody that has more of like a data science skill set and doesn't necessarily have, hardcore software engineering skills. And I think that's probably what's going to happen in 2020, 2021 is that it's not going to be about, hey, I created a model this year. It's going to be about, I created 1,000 models this month.
Cool. Are most of the people who are in this, the universities you're teaching for, are they, are you teaching it for engineering students, or what's the background of most of the people in your classes?
Yeah, so for programs like Duke, a lot of there'll be a mix. So there'll be, some hardcore engineering students who, know C++ and assembly and data structures and things like that. And then the other half will be, from a diverse background, like they could even be from liberal arts background or science background. And I've noticed that both equally, are able to grasp I call it like a Jupyter Notebook based, engineering. So there's actually I think I have a link I could share real quick that shows the.
Now, if you want to share it, I can put it up on the screen.
Yeah. Let me just give you this link, because this is, I think, a good example of what. Let's see here. This would be under. Yeah, I call it Elastic Machine Learning with Notebooks. This, if you just pull this up, this first part of this, you'll see what I mean. That it's this that what's fun about what's happening with Jupyter now is that you've got a science focus and you've got an engineering focus, and with a lot of what's been happening initially with Jupyter Notebook is that there's been this science-based flow of visualization, teams and groups, source control, and then in terms of the engineering focus, this is really 2020, 2021 I don't know if people can see it or not. I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't get the link.
Oh! I can maybe put it to you. Right? Did it not? Was I not able to give it to you? Maybe check your email. Maybe.
Okay.
Here's a link. There we go. And I can also put it in our stream
In the
here.
chat.
Yeah, I can go to this and put it into this as well.
Oh, there we go. Okay, it came in.
Yeah. So if you look at that first picture, that's I think the real issue of scroll down a little bit is that with Jupyter Notebook, and I'd be curious about your opinion about this as well, is like if you're seeing the same thing where basically there's a science focus, and science focus is where I think a lot of people started is they started with teaching pandas, matplotlib, plotly. You have groups of people that are working with Jupyter Notebook and GitHub and things like that, and maybe it's hooked into source control. But what we haven't done that much of, but we're starting to do with Jupyter Notebooks now, and again, I would say this is 2020 to 2021, is now actually Jupyter Notebooks do ML training, and they also do ML deployment, and they also work with the data lake, and they also work with the GPU, and they now work with Docker format containers. They work with cloud platforms, and so this is where these scientists, I think, many of them will start to go into the engineering side a bit. So I don't know what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, my experience has been like from doing trainings with multiple groups on who want to leverage machine learning or visualization or whatever data science is. A lot of them are using Jupyter to do that, and I think it's a really powerful tool. There is, I guess, to your point, I think people use that a little bit differently than traditional software engineers. So, if you're a traditional software engineer and you're looking for all the bells and whistles, people who are doing machine learning violate lots of software engineering rules, right? Like doing everything at the global level and whatnot. And so I think it's super powerful. Just be aware that if you're coming from a software engineering background, some things might seem a little loosey-goosey, or this isn't my IDE, but I think it's super powerful. I use Jupyter almost every day. I also use other tools as well, but I think I like your little image here. Cool. What else you been working on?
The other thing that I think is an interesting workflow that I've been teaching a lot is this edge-based workflow with things like Google AutoML to Coral. So this is a fun device if people want to play around with edge-based machine learning. Is this Coral device? I don't know if you've played around with these before, but they're like $30-$40, and this particular chip can do inference, a really powerful inference on a low form factor, and you just plug it into any OS 10, Windows, Linux, and it works very well with Google's AutoML system. So if you, let's say, wanted to train a model that recognized cats and dogs, right? You could have a bunch of pictures of cats, a bunch of pictures of dogs, upload them to Google Cloud, click train, and then once you're done, you actually could export the model into a format that works with this Coral system, and then do predictions on it. So
and then you hook it up to your Raspberry Pi or something.
You could as well. You could also hook it to a Raspberry Pi. And what's great about those tools, and this is the way I teach this computer vision classes, I tell the students is other classes, everyone gets into, deep neural networks and how to create the layers and all this stuff. There's tons of those classes. In this class, I don't care about any of that. Just build something that works. So build something where you can take your computer vision model and do something with it, detect whether someone's wearing a mask, find some people on the street that are cars or bikes or whatever. And also you can take that and you can deploy it to an iOS or Android device as well. And I think that's one of the more exciting things. And I don't know if you've seen this link actually to, let's see, if you say Google AutoML, I guess I can put that in our chat as well. That it's pretty awesome. The let's see, Google AutoML flow. Let's see, Google AutoML export model. It is that it's pretty awesome. If you look through the different, if you scroll through this, look, I'll put this into our chat. Let's go here. So I think I can just put this. Did you see that in our LinkedIn chat? Did that work?
Yeah, it came up. Let me click
okay.
on that.
Yeah, if you look at that, I mean, if you want something fun to play around with, it's like a tools thing to play around with. This is definitely kind of a fun little demo. Is like you can just upload some data to their AutoML system, and then if you scroll down to the bottom, they show you all these different ways to export it to these edge-based devices like the Coral, or you can even run it in JavaScript. So you can have like TensorFlow predictions in JavaScript. You can export it to your Android device or iOS device. It's definitely a fun thing to play around with.
For some reason, StreamYard won't let me click on that link. It'll let me show it on the screen, so I'm just typing it in here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what's. And then I'll share my screen.
Yeah, but in a nutshell, I think that's if you're looking for a fun summer project to play around with that it shows the future. I think it's this edge-based machine learning from AutoML is pretty awesome. And what I've seen students do with this is pretty amazing. And in theory, you could write almost no code or very, very little code and train a model and then export it to any number of endpoints, from a physical device to, again, JavaScript in the browser to your iOS device or your Android device.
So is the, I don't want to geek out too much on this Coral device. Is the Coral device? The Coral device is not a TPU. It's a third-party product.
It is. Okay. It is. So if you go to, I think there's a link to it that you could probably pull up if you just look for, do like a Control F for Coral or something. Okay. They should let you.
Well, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. If you do, they have like a link to Coral.
Coral hardware products.
Yeah. If you click on this, it's pretty awesome. If you look at the different products, where if you maybe just click on that link, and you can see it, especially if you have a kid home for the summer or something like that. Like I can throw this in the chat link as well.
Yeah, apparently this is not a link here. This is an image that has the link in it. Okay, which is Coral AI products. Okay.
Yeah, it's fortunately pretty easy to pull up. And then if you click on that, you'll see like the form factors are really these tiny little TPUs. So these are actually they run a chip that's designed to work for doing inference from the TensorFlow framework. And what's awesome about this is this does to this concept of ASICs, right? You're building these
Sure.
chips that are specifically designed. And if you scroll down here, that's the one I have, is that Coral
The middle one,
board.
USB
Yeah,
accelerator.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it works very well with AutoML Vision Edge. So basically, you just click some buttons on Google's cloud, and then when it's done training, you put it onto this device.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's a lot more like, this is one of my critiques of what's been wrong with machine learning over the last couple of years, is that with machine learning, there's been so much focus on the research that there hasn't been enough focus on this kind of stuff, which is, I
How
don't
do
know
you
if you have,
deploy it?
yeah, and how to, like, is it doing anything? Like, does it work? So I have a robot vacuum, this Eufy vacuum in my house, that is like, this is something that's doing something. It's using, AI. It's mapping my room. It's like vacuuming every day. Like,
It's not
this
just
solves,
bouncing off walls.
yeah, this is solving a real problem for me. My house is cleaner as a result, and it's super helpful. So I think with these kind of devices, tomorrow somebody could figure out some solution they want solved, and they could deploy the model to this device and just use it. And I think that's what's cool about these TPUs, that, and you can see if you scroll down to the very, very bottom, there's also a super tiny um, uh,
This guy,
multi-chip module. Yeah, like that. You can see that. Look how it's 10 by 15 millimeter,
millimeters. Yeah.
and those can do prediction as well. So you could just imagine what's going to happen in the next few years, is that we can do all these predictions, and in some cases there could be like tens of thousands of predictions all happening on some piece of hardware. Just imagine the kind of fun things that are going to happen in the future.
Yeah, that's really cool. Awesome. So have you done this course already with the Coral, or is this a new course that you're coming out with?
So this is something I teach at Northwestern, and I also teach for some students in China, but I haven't built this yet into anything, because I've been too busy into anything that's like a product yet.
Cool. Awesome. So I'll briefly riff on what I've been working on. If you follow me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, you'll know that we just launched this Humble Bundle here, and so I'll put the link here in the chat. But yeah, this is a Python training Humble Bundle, and it's got a bunch of great products in it. So there's probably like 9 courses in it. There's a bunch of little practice tools to practice Python, and I'll just highlight sort of what I've been working on, because it might be interesting for my audience here. The first is this Python for Data Scientists course. So I spend a lot of time helping people who want to leverage Python, who aren't programmers, and a lot of them want to do sort of what Noah was talking about. They want to do visualization or machine learning or whatnot, and turns out that Python is the de facto language for doing those things. And so this is a course not targeted on teaching you object-oriented programming and how to be a software engineer and pass whiteboard interviews, but more like, hey, I want to leverage Pandas and NumPy and scikit-learn or TensorFlow, and so this is going to give you the prerequisite knowledge for doing that. It's not focused on all of the features of Python. It's focused on, these are the features of Python that you need to know to be a data scientist. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I mean, that literally, I wrapped that up last week. So this is the first time it's available. I don't even have a homepage for it really right now. So I'm working on making a homepage for that. And then also this intermediate Python programming. This is a book that, it's an update of a book that I wrote 7 years ago. So goes over, and this is maybe in contrast to Python for data scientists, this is, for people who want to geek out on Python. Python has a bunch of cool features like generators and decorators and comprehension constructs. And this sort of goes into those and dives into how to recognize when to use them, pros and cons to them, best ways to utilize them. Two big updates for this version. Like I said, the original version came out a while, and you can look at it on Amazon or whatnot. It gets really good reviews, but it is completely updated for Python 3. So welcome to the future or the past. Python 3 has been out for a while now, but and it also has exercises in it there as well. So with every chapter, there is a little exercise. So. And then one more thing that I've been working on is this effective Pandas course. So having written a couple books about Pandas and teaching Pandas to thousands of people, I've seen, I think, good and bad Pandas code. And I'm coming down, as someone who's an educator, but also practitioner, do consulting and that sort of thing. I'm coming down on some rules and some best practices for Pandas that I'm not seeing explained other places. And so this is an attempt to sort of say, let's get going with Pandas, but use some of these best practices to avoid some of the thorny or parts of Pandas that might cause problems down the road. So that course is available there. That one does actually have a homepage. Just FYI, let me just pull up the homepage for that. This is available in the Humble Bundle right now. I'm making 3 different versions of it available, and only the basic version is available in the Humble Bundle. So there's this basic version, which is the video content, but I've also got a standard version, which in addition to the video content includes flashcards, a cheat sheet, exercises to practice on, and video walkthroughs for all the exercises. So if you buy the Humble Bundle, you'll get a discount code, and you can apply that if you want to upgrade to this. There's also a professional version that I'm offering as well. Includes all the other content, but it includes some live sessions. So if you are interested in sort of having a real human to talk to ask questions or whatnot, that will be the professional version. Again, both of those are discounted through the Humble Bundle right now. So I'm excited about that. That's what I've been working on for the past little bit, but cool product there. I think the Humble Bundle is definitely worthwhile if you're interested. Pretty good stuff.
Yeah,
okay.
It seems like not a bad deal to spend just a little bit of money and you get all that stuff.
Yeah. I'm biased, but I know the creators of the other stuff in there. You've got some Talk Python, you've got Real Python, you've got Reuven Lerner stuff. So there's some good stuff in there. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about tools, and so maybe I'll rant on this for a little bit, and then we'll let Noah rant on this for a little bit. Due to quarantine, just general nature of society right now, I recently sort of revamped my home computer setup. So I had been working with MacBook, and my MacBook was 2015. It's a decent machine. It's done fine, but I've found that with all of the live streaming and other stuff that I've been doing, as I've adapted from sort of doing a lot of live training to more, well, it's all virtual now, that my computer just wasn't really happy. So I needed to upgrade that. And since I do training, if you're in software circles, you'll hear that like Mac is the one true way or whatever. But it turns out that in practice, most of the world doesn't use Macs, and so I need to use Windows for better or for worse. because a lot of my clients use Windows. And, I'm teaching Python and data science, and a lot of these things work fine on Windows or Mac or Linux or whatnot. So what I did, I have another Windows machine that I had, and it turns out my Windows machine was wimpier than my Mac. So I decided to sort of do the leapfrog thing where I need access to both. So I decided to get a nicer Windows machine at this point and sort of use my old Mac machine. And so that's in general worked out okay. It's just sort of weird saying that. I mean, I spent 15 years running only Linux Gen 2, and so I guess if you told myself 15 years ago that you'd be basically running on Windows, I would have mocked myself. But I guess in my older age, I'm a little bit more pragmatic. But my one of the things I wanted to sort of talk about was that as someone who's used Linux and Unix systems for a while, I'm very familiar with Emacs, and I mean Emacs. We talked about Jupyter a little bit, but I kind of live in a terminal, Emacs, and a web browser. That's sort of where I hang out all day. And one of the nice things that I liked about Mac, and I still do like it about Mac, is that Macs provide Emacs bindings in a lot of places. So if you're if you're not an Emacs person, you might not be aware of this, but if you're like in a text cell and you want to go to the front of the text cell, you can hit like Control A to do that. If you want to go to the end of the line, you can hit Control E and you'll go to the end of the line. Or if you want to go forward a character, you can hit Control F and you'll go forward a character, or Control B and you'll go back a character. So I use that all the time, which turns out to be really useful, especially in a Jupyter environment. It turns out that I mean, we talked about how useful Jupyter is, and I think Jupyter is useful. However, Jupyter doesn't really have great editing capabilities if you're used to a text editor. Jupyter's okay, but I mean, for like code navigation, cruising around, it's not great. And so I really, when I started, when I got my new machine, Jupyter works fine on it, but when I started like demoing stuff, it turned out to be sort of a pain because I couldn't navigate through my code as quickly using the Windows machine. And so my point here is I guess my point is like using the mouse is something that you probably want to try and avoid if possible. It's going to slow you down. I realize a lot of people like using the mouse, and that might just be because they don't know keyboard shortcuts, but also like investing the time into understanding how to use your computer a little bit more can pay dividends. What I ended up doing on my machine is I installed a tool called Auto Hotkeys. And this is a nice little third-party tool. And basically, it allows you to write a script that controls what your keyboard does, what commands it sends. And so there's a script that I didn't write, someone else wrote it, which is called Emacs Everywhere. And what Emacs Everywhere does is it basically allows you to emulate this behavior that Mac has, where you can hit Control A and go to the front of the line, or Control E and go to the end of the line. But basically, you can do that everywhere. So it's probably a little bit more powerful than you get on Mac. And so I've installed that, and I feel like it's been a huge boost to my productivity. Also, due to the fact that I've been recording a couple videos the past little while, I've been doing quite a bit of video editing. And being on a new computer or whatnot, I thought I'd try out a new tool, and so the video editor that I chose to use is Davinci Resolve, which is a super powerful editor. It turns out you can get a free version that works on Mac, Windows, Linux. They also sell an enhanced version as well. Really impressed. I'm just using the free version, really impressed with it. It's really powerful, probably more so than any other editor I've used. And but again, there's a learning curve to using a new tool, and also being an Emacs nerd, I found that like I wanted to do certain things and it didn't really feel natural. So what I did was I actually made Emacs bindings for Davinci Resolve, and now editing video is somewhat similar to editing text. I can like zoom around and move my cursor around in my video, and I can cut and copy and paste and delete and remove, and mostly from using my keyboard, not from using the mouse at all. So it makes, which is really nice when you've got a couple hours of videos that you need to edit, you can clean those up and do that pretty quickly. So I've been sort of ranting a lot. Noe, you familiar with Emacs? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I never really got into Emacs. I guess I was more the Vim world, and a lot of the stuff I initially started with was terminal based in terms of editing config files from a sysadmin standpoint. And so that was just the one it was like back in the day, you had to pick one, Emacs or Vim, and just roll a dice and just happen to pick, Vim. And yeah, I think they're both very, very interesting editors, and regardless of where you're at in your career, you should know one of them. You should even now when there's so many other tools available, that you should know some terminal based editor, because it's just going to save you a lot of time. Still in data science, the terminal, that's one of the more common ones I hear people all the time is, hey, I need to get better at command line tools or terminal. Yeah, you need to know one of those tools.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking that one of my next courses might be sort of a command line for sort of similar to for Python for data scientists or whatever, but a command line for data scientists. Again, a lot of people come to start leveraging these tools, and they're not, if you're on a Mac, you don't need to use the command line on a Mac. And if you're on Windows, most people have never used the command prompt on Windows or the PowerShell. And it turns out that, if you want to, I tell my students, if you really want to be proficient in Python, you kind of need to know the command line. And it might be like, oh, this is really weird. I feel like I'm on a movie where people are like hacking, but I think again to the topic of tools, like understanding how the command line works and being able to leverage the command line will enable you to do things a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently than if you're trying to do things with the mouse or pointing and clicking. And some things just aren't even possible if you don't use the command line.
Yeah, I actually had it's funny, I've had some people like students in their early 20s or people I've worked with in the past tell me that why are you using the command line? That's old. We don't do that anymore. And then my response is like, I'm going to be blunt here, is you just don't know what you don't know. That in fact you absolutely need to use the command line, because there is no other way to do some of the things that you need to do. And it's like saying that I only need to use Microsoft Word because that's all the problems of text editing that you need to use. You would never need to use Emacs or Vim. It's like, yeah, you're eliminating a large selection of things that you can be working on by not knowing the command line. So I fundamentally disagree with your point.
Yeah,
and
even in Jupyter, right? I mean, even in Jupyter, you need to sometimes run shell commands or do things that you might not be doing them at the command line per se, but you're executing command line commands from Jupyter. If you're using like Colab or something like that, you might not have a package installed and you need to install it. And generally, most people in Python land are going to install packages from the command line, right? And so you need to have that knowledge in order to really leverage a tool. I think your point about Word is sort of apropos. Like, yeah, I've seen people who like you give them a text file to edit and they'll throw it up in Word, or on the contrast, they'll put it up in Notepad. And certainly you can use those tools to edit text. But again, to the point of tooling, if you're using those, you're doing things less effective and less efficient than you can. And I mean, you can be less effective if you want to, but it's only going to cause you to take more time than you need to, and maybe frustrate people. And the worst, it can cause problems, and that your boss or others might it might cause performance review problems or whatnot from that.
Yeah, well, I think that the answer to many problems with when the default of human nature is to avoid suffering, and this is, unfortunately, I was listening to, I don't know what I was watching last night, some TV show, and they're like, the problem with America is people think they have a right to be happy, or something like that. And it's kind of the same thing with, to be good at programming, machine learning, cloud computing, whatever, that once you accept the fact that there is suffering that never goes away, and that's the constant state of what you're doing, just like running, like we both got into running. How do you become a good runner? You accept the fact that suffering is actually a desired component of what you're doing. That's actually,
Yeah.
when you're suffering, you're in the experience. So you have to be in the moment, and that's how you run a marathon or you do an ultra marathon, is that you accept the situation you're in. You don't fight it. If you're fighting, so the same thing with that if you accept the fact that like there are things that are less ideal, like, hey, you're going to need to know how to do command line tools, you're going to know how to use an editor, and once you do that, then it's amazing what you can accomplish, because you realize that that's actually part of it, is that you're always not going to know something, and if it's easy, you're not growing, you're not actually expanding your horizon. And so that's actually I say that in every course I teach at every university, is that if you're not having some level of suffering, then you're not learning something, and you should be very concerned.
I like that. I'd probably go so far as to say that like pain is actually good. And that might sound a little bit weird, but like generally pain is telling you, like, to your point, that you're growing, unless you're putting your hand on like a hot oven or something like that. I mean, in that case, pain is good too, because it's signaling that you shouldn't do something. But generally, the times when you feel pain or whatnot, or discomfort, is probably because you're growing, your muscles hurt from maybe working them a little bit hard, or something's hard to do on your computer, and that might be because you're not doing things the right way, or you could be doing them a little bit better way, but you're hopefully going to learn from that experience.
Well, and also, if you look at people that, or if I look at, I'll just talk about myself. If I look at people that I've really had a lot of respect for, that have passed away, or that I've met that were mentors, a lot of the people who are really deep people who have a lot to say have had some severe suffering at some point in their life. Like, they lost a child, or they came from complete poverty and they learned skills, and these are often very deep people who have a lot to say. And so, if you've only experienced joy and comfort, then you may not have a lot to say.
Yeah.
You may not have a lot useful things to say. So having a little bit of suffering and trying to find a way to not break yourself, but to constantly expose yourself to that is a good thing.
Yeah. Hence my uses of Windows.
In fact, one of my mentors that I met at Caltech, this brain surgeon who's since passed away, he has this awesome story on his website, which I think it's debunked now, or like it went away, unfortunately. But what it said was, he said, falling in love is a lot like training bonsai trees. And he said that in order for a bonsai tree to be, for it to actually be cultivated, you need to constantly expose it to risk with no guaranteed chance of success. And like, if you know what a bonsai tree is, it's actually, you constantly you torture it. You tweak it, and there's some of them are, I think, what is it, several hundred years old.
Yeah.
Right. But the problem is, if you don't torture it, it won't do all these really cool techniques. But if you do torture it too much, then it dies, and then there's something that's 300 years old and you just killed it.
Yeah.
And you said that's the same thing of having a relationship with someone, is if you can expose yourself to hurt with no guarantee of success. That's the only formula. And I was like, wow, that's like one of the deepest things I've ever heard someone say. That's pretty profound.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that goes along with a lot of vulnerability, right? And I think society sort of teaches us that vulnerability is a sign of weakness, but I like that.
So that's why everyone should get a Twitter account, so you can expose yourself to constant suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, certainly you can social networks allow you to be suffered or exposed to suffering. Yeah. We got a comment here. Jake Carter says, I'm in the VI camp. The VI chapter was before Emacs. Most IDEs have a Vim plugin. I also say tools like sed and awk can be really useful. Yeah, I saw a comment. I don't even know where it was from, but someone was saying they were talking about, if you had to sort a gigabyte of data, what tools would you use? I think it was in the context of an interview, and they said, if I'm rank ordering, I'd say someone who goes for Excel is at the bottom, and then I'd go for someone who knows R, and then I'd say someone who knows Python, but I'd give top kudos to the person who used the sort command on the command line. There's
actually a command that I use called shuffle that you and literally you can truncate a CSV file and shuffle it while you truncate it.
Oh,
but
nice. I didn't know that, so there you go. Is that? I'm gonna see if that's available right here. Do I have to install it?
I have an example.
No, it looks like it's there. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think it's just, but like basically, yeah, make random permutations. Like, I have some examples of this in Python for DevOps book. Actually, I have an example of this, and basically, the premise of why, to your point, is exactly the point you're bringing up, which is that if you're working with pandas, for example, and it turns out that crap, pandas doesn't work anymore, like it just blows up, completely, then what you could do is you could use the shuffle command, truncate it, and then put it into pandas. So that way you at least, because a lot of times with pandas, the API and all the cool things you can do with it, you can kind of get that sorted with like a very small subset of the data frame. Yeah. And then later you could put on a more powerful machine if you need to and do it. But like with the truncated shuffle, you can get kind of a good like a sample.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Awesome. So that's sort of my rant today. I think, Noah, you said you wanted to talk about some tools that you found useful.
Yeah, I would say that the one that I've been playing around with a lot is GitHub Actions. And I guess we could I could either show it or
do you have
we
a
could just
screen
talk
share
about it.
option on your machine, or?
Yeah, I think I could do that. So I could just show you real quick some GitHub Action stuff. Okay, so
Yeah, if you would, that'd be awesome.
Share screen, and we'll just do this. There we go, and I'll just type in GitHub. Yeah, there we go. So if you haven't had a chance, a lot of the stuff that Matt and I have been talking about, you can do this stuff with GitHub Actions. Let me just show you a couple things you can do. So let's just say we create a new project, and we'll just call this Hello GA GitHub Actions, and I can just put some defaults here. And I think I can even just do all this without even opening up anything but GitHub. And so I can just write some Python code. So I can just say, create new file, like we'll just say def hello.
I guess you don't need to be able to use a terminal.
Yeah, there we go. So I can just write some Python code here, and what am I doing wrong here? So it says,
I think you need to add a comment.
Oh, okay. Say like hello, and then I commit this file. That's weird. More. Why is it? That's very strange how it's not letting me make that file. Oh, I need to call
Name
it. Yeah, okay. I need it hello.py. There we go. So I create this file here, and then in theory, I could then also make like a whole project in here. So I could go back and just for fun, I've actually never exactly done what I'm about to try, but I think I know enough to do this.
Okay. Live coding.
Yeah. And requirements, we could do PyLint or something like that. And then you could just commit that. And now we got a requirements file. And then you could, I think that's all you need to do. And then say GitHub Actions. And then from here, you can just grab something. Like there's all these other example GitHub Action packages, and which are pretty cool, like how to publish Python packages, applications, all kinds of stuff. But what I'll do is I think I already have one that's pretty close. So I'm going to click on set up a workflow yourself, and then I'm going to go to one that I have GitHub. I think it's like Azure ML or something. Azure ML engineering was something I was working on earlier. That I'll just put this into LinkedIn, into our, just so that people can see this repo, and shoot, use your post. This would be this one. Okay, so I'll just comment on my own. Although it'd be good to comment on this post. There we go. I'll just throw it in there. Okay, so this is the one I'm working on. I'll go back again to GitHub, and let's open up another GitHub. Azure ML, and we can just copy what was Azure DevOps. Sorry, Azure DevOps, ML DevOps. There we go. So I'm going to copy one that I created a while back. And this is, I think, a recommended workflow is once you create one of these things, it's probably easy enough to just cut and paste them and mess around with it. And we can just put whatever. We'll keep it Python 3.5 in this case, but it could be, actually, there's no reason to not do Python 3.8. Let's do Python 3.8. So Python 3.8, and then I just run a command. And in this case, instead of doing make install, I would just need to do what is it? Pip install first, right? So like pip install -r requirements. So this would get requirements.txt, and then lint. Yeah, I would just say PyLint, and then hello, something like that. And I think this would work. I've never done this exactly the way that I'm showing this, but I'm just guessing that this would work.
Okay.
And once we commit this, then actions will get triggered, in theory, here, or it should be. There we go. So it's now triggered. It spins up a container. It puts Python 3 in there, and then I can just tell it to do something. And what is kind of cool about this is I didn't even, I am actually writing all of my code inside of basically Markdown in GitHub UI, and I could, I mean, it wouldn't be a great development environment, but it's not necessarily horrible either for this kind of stuff. And here we go. So it basically accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, which was that it failed. It says all kinds of
two spaces.
Yeah, 2 spaces. All kinds. So there we go. But so just to show like how quickly it is to set up GitHub Actions and do stuff in it. It's like, why would you not do this for every single project? And for me, it also is there's all these other like things you can do with GitHub Actions. Like you can set up like Markdown lins and like shell lins and like all kinds of super cool stuff. So that's one of my big things right now. Is I would say if you haven't integrated GitHub Actions, you can see how useful it is. And
that's
in
awesome.
fact,
I haven't done that. What advice or what actions would you sort of say start out with, or what sort of things are you finding it most useful for?
So I have another one called GitHub Actions PyTest, and this is another one. I'll just throw the link in chat. So this one, I think is probably a better one to talk about. Is that this is like a sample project that someone could clone, and what I would recommend is you could even fork this project and use this as a scaffolding project for, something as I would create a makefile. I think it is. This is like we're talking about command line tools. It's like, why would you create a makefile? Well, because they work everywhere, and in this case, I put my installation stuff like upgrade pip, install requirements. So I say make install. I have my test in here, so I do PyTest in here. I do my linting. And so I think those are really the core steps is that I would put into GitHub Actions is install, test, lint. In fact, let's just run this real quick, and you can see what the hello file does. It's just some simple code here. Now, if I run this,
now is it run every time you commit, or is it only?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can tell it. You can change it as well and make it do different things. But I believe there's a way. Just to be lazy, I guess what I can do is I was going to add one other thing in here that I've noticed how I have black as well. The formatting tool is we can also you could run another step, which is you could run the code formatting, and so you could just double check that your code formats correctly, I guess. So we could say format, and then you could say black hello.py or something like that, or even just asterisk.py. And then I could commit this. And again, I've never tried it exactly how I'm doing this, but I think we could go to the GitHub Workflows. And I think this is probably the steps I would recommend is lint, install lint, test, and then if you want to get real tricky, you also could add a optional format so that you would see that if there was formatting tweaks that you needed to make here. So let's see, what do I need to do? I just need to add this. You can see here, this is not a great editor, and it's very likely I'm going to totally screw things up here. It
doesn't syntax highlight YAML. There you go.
and we'll say lints or format code like that, and then just say make format, exactly. And then if we try this, does this work? That now, and I like that you can tail the log file on this thing, so you can just look at it, see it building, and this thing can like deploy code to like AWS Lambda, like you probably build machine learning models. Like, it's pretty awesome, actually. GitHub Actions is for the kind of stuff that I like to do. There we go. So look, you can see, look, it did actually format one file. So that would tell me that, in fact, there was the file test hello. If I wanted to change it on my own later, I could go and run the black command, which I don't know if you use that command, but I actually am sympathetic to it. I think the concept is a cool idea, which is that you have something that just makes everything a certain format, and then people just they quit having fights with each other, Twitter flame wars and things like that.
Yeah, I use black on one of my books. I think I don't like what it does to Pandas code. Coming back to my
I haven't really tried it,
but yeah, I am somewhat sympathetic to the idea. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna go leverage this. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure. So
then we got a question here from Ganesh for Noah. It says, I know I'm a machine learning enthusiast. I would like to know the ideal path for beginner in AWS machine learning specialty.
Yeah, so if you do have access to O'Reilly, one of the things that you could do is basically everything I've ever created on O'Reilly, just skim through it. And I think that will be pretty helpful to you, because the majority of stuff that I have on the O'Reilly platform, I guess I could just share one more time, is basically very sympathetic.
Cloud-centric.
Yeah, cloud. That's like the kind of style of code or kind of things that I have a machine learning exam learning path, DevOps engineer, machine learning engineer video. Everything in here pretty much somehow mentions AWS machine learning, even the Google Cloud platform, all these things. These are all things that, cloud computing for data book. Just go through there and you'll probably have all kinds of ideas about, how you could get started with it. But I think that would be one. The other one is that I would definitely make sure that you master SageMaker. So, I think in order to be a machine learning engineer on the AWS cloud, you need to master SageMaker. And once you have gone through and used the SageMaker notebooks and gone through a bunch of those notebooks, I think that will also help you, get up to speed with being an AWS machine learning engineer. So those would be my pieces of advice.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. Any parting thoughts before we take off?
Well, we should see if we can collaborate a little bit on the shell stuff. I bet you between the two of us, that might be an interesting thing to maybe Alfredo too. We could create something pretty quickly.
Yeah, that would be, I think, a course and book along with that would be pretty nice, because my experience has been that unless you're I'd say a programmer who has a background in Unix, unless you have a background in Unix, most people don't understand how to use the command line. And so, like I said, for at least Python, if you really want to be proficient in Python, having that knowledge is going to really empower you.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a great chat today, and we'll try to maybe do it more more frequently. We were both got super busy the last few weeks.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for chatting with me, Noah. Take care, and hope to do this again soon.
Okay, talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.